Hello folks, and welcome to yet another update on how about a third of the country has turned traitor and decided that they would rather destroy our nation than leave the European Union. Anyway, Boris can't get anything done, obviously, and the Telegraph publishing articles such as Boris might have to go on strike over Brexit to get past this rebellious Parliament. Because it is Parliament against the Prime Minister and the voters, but we'll come to that in a minute. So I don't know whether this works. I mean, we are in such murky constitutional waters, and I am no constitutional expert in Britain or any other country, that it's really not something a layman can just judge, to be honest. But because honestly, right, this isn't necessarily to the fault of the commentators looking inwards either. I don't think anyone really knows. I think this is all up in the air, and I think that this is going to be cited as precedent for centuries to come. This is breaking new ground, and not necessarily in a good way, but I suppose it had to happen eventually. I suppose eventually we would have to end up with a faction of people in Britain who are so entitled and so dogmatic and so uninterested in the fairness or results of the democracy in which they live, that they will do everything they can to rip it apart, as long as it means getting their way. And I know a Remainer go, well, that's you Brexiteers. No, that's not us Brexiteers. We are legitimate because we won the fucking referendum. Do you understand? That was a vote on the direction in which the country will go, and you are saying, no, we don't accept that direction. Too fucking bad. Too fucking bad. I expected to lose. I expected it to be reverse. 48% leave. And I was like, well, I don't think this is a good direction for Britain, but I guess we're going to have to accept it because this is what we voted for. That was what I was prepared to say, but you guys were not prepared to say, well, we don't want to leave the European Union, but I guess now we're Team Britain. We have to be because that's what we voted for. Instead, about 35% are going to be like, no, fuck you. We are Remain to the end. We don't care. We will literally just do everything to make you try and capitulate. And so now Boris apparently has to go on a fucking strike. The Prime Minister has to go on strike because the Parliament refuses to follow a democratic mandate. That's what this is. And they won't call a fucking general election because they know it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a bloodbath for Labour, and anyone in a Remain seat, I imagine, is going to get fucking slaughtered. If anyone in a Leave seat, a Remain politician in a Leave seat is going to get slaughtered. Let's be honest. At this point, people are fucked off. But we'll get to that in a minute. We'll just get to that in a minute, because this whole thing is demonstrating it's a real realignment here, right? Amber Rudd, an important but wet Conservative politician, has resigned from the cabinet and surrendered the Conservative whip. She is going to be an independent following this, and she's unhappy because Boris Johnson removed the whip from 21 other Conservative defectors who, for some reason, have decided that they are going to join the team that lost. They're going to join the team that did not win the referendum, do not have democratic legitimacy, and are refusing to call an election while calling the Prime Minister a dictator as he says, call a general election. It's unreal how incoherent the Remain position is at this point. They have nothing, absolutely nothing other than their hurt feelings, and they're scaremongering about the future. Anyway, so Amber Rudd has resigned from the Conservatives. She hasn't joined the Liberal Democrats, although many other people are. People from the Labour Party and the Tories. This is a Labour MP, Angela Smith, has decided that she's joined the Liberal Democrats after sitting as an independent. So everything's going pretty gravy for Jo Swinson, apart from her mentions on Twitter are horrific. Obviously, she's kind of trying to meme it up in the most cringeworthy way. But her replies are just brutal. This is like Labour supporters who are just saying, no, she's a Tory, she's a Tory. She's obviously not a Tory, but she's not also Labour. But it's just constant brutalising of her. Labour have also lost John Mann, who's quit as an MP in protest that Corbyn's giving open licence to anti-Semites, because everyone hates Jeremy Corbyn. There is an even smaller faction of people who are part of the Remain conglomerate, who are the radical leftist momentum types who think that Jeremy Corbyn is actually going to usher in real communism, and they love him more than anything else. Well, they also hate the Jews, obviously Israel, usually a kind of dog whistle for Jews when the momentum types are talking about it, because they see Israel as fascist, obviously. But yeah, so Labour is hemorrhaging MPs as well, and Jeremy Corbyn is also getting Piers Corbyn, his brother. He's also getting it in the face from him, and this is important because obviously they say Joe Johnson's quitting the Conservative cabinet, even though Boris is a clear Remainer, and I accidentally said he was a Boris is a clear Leaver. I said it again. For some reason, I accidentally said Boris is a clear Remainer at the beginning of the last video. No, he's a clear Leaver. That's what I meant, but I think everyone assumed that that's what I meant. Piers is obviously a clear Leaver as well. Honestly, he strikes me as a kind of UKIP voter. But he's been absolutely going after Jeremy Corbyn because, seriously, like, Jeremy Corbyn was one of the biggest Eurosceptics in the country right up until the Tories called the referendum. And it's because the Tories did it that he's concerned. It's the Tories, and he calls it, we can't let them have a Tory Brexit. This is not about your partisanship with Labour and Tories. Like, I don't know whether you've noticed, but there are significant forces coming up that don't give a shit about the Labour and Tory ancient hatred of one another. They don't care about that at all. They care about, like, autistically to these principles. Farage with hard Brexit now, Joe Swinson with hard Remain now, become the EU's fucking vassal state. Like, these are genuinely radical positions that are opposing each other. And the Tories are at least sensible enough to go, well, hang on a second. We actually need to lean hard into the Brexit one because A, we've got a democratic mandate for that. B, most of the country seems to want that at the moment. At least the most of the country that has an opinion. Let's leave out the undecideds. And that actually gives us some strength from which to argue. Say we're proud to be British. We're a pro-British party, not a pro-European party. And that's where the Lib Dems are going hard. And Labour, only the Tories at least know where they want to go. Labour are kind of just sat vacillating in the middle, going, oh God, which way, which way, which way? And it's just bleeding them out. They're like going white. So that's good. But this is all making everyone very, very cynical. It's going to be nothing but tactical voting campaigns from here on out until we get there. And it's not just the Remainers doing this, obviously. This just happens to be an example of the Remainers doing this. The initiative to endorse candidates who back a second vote on EU membership, I hope they lose. And I think that the Brexiteers need to be smart. I mean, Richard Brain has already come out and said, look, we're not going to contest any Tory seats. And I think that's very, very sensible. He's just said it unconditionally. We have to support the Conservatives in this. There's no question of it. Who else is there? Nigel Farage doesn't have the sort of route that the Tories have and that Boris has. There's no getting around this. They are the lead players in this drama, and the rest of us have to play second fiddle to that. I've kind of been annoyed with the way that Nigel Farage has been approaching the Tories in regards to the Brexit Party and their campaigning. I do think that they got screwed in, Bedford, where the Labour Party won on postal votes, where a known fraudster who'd committed voting fraud through postal votes was in the counting booths. But anyway, let's just assume that's not the case. I think the Brexit Party could be an electoral threat to the Tories. And so it's been annoying me that he's been putting conditions on. Oh, well, Boris has to guarantee no-deal Brexit and things like this. It's like, no, look, we just don't have a choice at the moment. You should just do this anyway. You shouldn't be offering a pact. This strikes me as vanity and ego. That he's saying, the Conservatives effectively have to validate the Brexit Party. I don't see why you would need them to do that anyway. Just go after the Labour heartlands in the north if that's what you're thinking. If you've got the money to do it, you've got the manpower to do it, which Nigel Farage probably does, then just ignore the Tories. Just go straight after Labour. Go for any Liberal Democrat places where they're doing well, but only because no one else is really campaigning against them. If you've got the finances, you go and do it. If you can bring the activists out, then do that. Make these things happen. Don't worry. Don't go after the Tories, obviously. If it comes down to the cold, blunt force trauma of electoral math, then just go for Labour. Just destroy them. It's time for them to die anyway. They've long outlived their function as a useful and defensive identity and sort of class interest for the working man. That's gone. It's just gone. So don't sit there and be cynical about it. Don't try and up your own ego. You'll come out of this well either way. Just go and do it. Anyway, could no-deal Brexit happen on the 31st of October? Well, possibly, according to the BBC, but highly unlikely. There are some radically weird scenarios. So Johnson would have to request the extension, as we saw earlier. The Lords, the Parliament put it through. The Lords shoved it through as quickly as they could, and Johnson said, "No, I'd rather be dead in a ditch." Good for him. This is what I mean. It's like this is, and I love the way he said it. It's like, what, are you committed to not asking for an extension? He's like, "Yes, I'd rather be dead in a ditch." It's like, good man, very good man. I know exactly how he feels. But anyway. So there are two scenarios in which we would not have to do this, according to the BBC. The MPs approve another Brexit deal approve a Brexit deal in another meaningful vote. No, I don't remember them, BBC. And the MPs vote in favour of leaving the EU without a deal. Right, so neither of them are going to fucking happen. Right, the EU is not going to change their deal that they negotiated with Theresa May. As far as they're concerned, that's the deal. We can't go for that. Parliament's refused it 3 times, so it's going to have to be something else. Now, can the government ignore the law? Not really, without incurring legal action. Can the government scrap the law? No, because the Parliament is against them. They would need parliamentary approval. Right? Could the EU refuse? Well, yes, actually. That is actually something that can happen. That's something that Macron has been threatening of. In the current circumstances, France will refuse an extension to the Brexit process and effectively just kick us out. I mean, I'm happy with that. I think that would be great. That seems to be a way of kind of cajoling and threatening the Liberal Democrats into ever more hysterical positions, because it really is getting absolutely hysterical. But I'm in favour of France not extending the deadline. That would be great for me, obviously, because I'm a Brexiteer. But either way, Dominic Raab said that the government is going to test the law to its limit on this, because they do not want an extension to the Article 50 process. They do not want this. They want to leave. And they're very, very clear and very consistent in their rhetoric and very consistent in their behaviour up until this point. We actually have the Brexiteer Conservative Party that we needed from day one, and it would be useful if we can have a general election, because, man, people would rather no deal to Corbyn. 48% of Britons would rather have no deal and no Corbyn than the 35% who'd rather have a deal or a second vote. It's actually quite wild. Obviously, these are very split along partisan lines. But even on Remain voters, 64% said that they would rather Jeremy Corbyn become Prime Minister and hold a second referendum on EU membership, and including an option to remain in the EU. Even a third of Remain voters don't want that, or don't ask for that, and 23 actively oppose it and say that Britain should leave. A quarter oppose it and say that Britain should leave without a deal and Jeremy Corbyn should not become Prime Minister. So it's not like the Remain voters are actually even united on this, but the Leave voters is a lot more consistent. And obviously with the Conservative and Brexit Party voters, you can say they're massively consistent. And the Lib Dems, they're not thrilled about the idea of Corbyn becoming Prime Minister. So anyway, most of the people who are still invested in this, because there's obviously a percentage of people who say, I don't know. Well, ignoring the I don't knows, 48% say no deal, no Corbyn, 35% say deal and Corbyn. So we have the mandate. We had it in 2016, we have it now, and it's showing in the opinion pollings about the Tories. All of this has been, like, and there have been huge, like, public smear campaigns against the Tories. Like Jacob Rees-Mogg laying back in Parliament. Well, I mean, he was probably there for like 7 hours, you know, and he's notorious for being like that. It's just what he's like. And they've been doing this to Boris as well. Boris is like, he's weak, he's afraid. It's like, well, if he is, people love a fucking underdog, don't they? Because now the Conservatives are up to 35% of the vote, which is the best in quite a long time. The Brexit Party is down to 13%. The Liberal Democrats and Labour on 25 and 17% respectively. Like, this is a majority Brexiteer country. You don't forget that, right? And when the Tories are going hard Brexit, well, unsurprisingly, they're getting the support, as they deserve. Tomorrow, Monday, there will be a Make Brexit Happen rally, which is going to be a protest that we have not left the European Union. They need to be shown that there are real people who are really bothered about this, rather than just people talking on the internet. The bodies in real life matter. This is what I've learned, that even if nothing directly happens, it's about giving the impression. It's about sending a message. So I'll be there from about midday onwards for the afternoon. If you'd like to come down and see me, hang out, and hear people talking, things like that, you know where to be. It'll be at College Green, and I'll see you there.